Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to go from Excel to Word with Python. By the end of this video, you'll be able to get started right away if you have a file or files that you want to convert to Word. More specifically, I'll talk about exporting Excel to Word using APIs, and I'm going to tell you what APIs are. I'm going to talk about how to get access to the content of an Excel file and how to write that content into a Word document. First, let's talk about the problem that you might have. You might have to copy and paste things from an Excel file into a Word document again and again and again and again. And so every time you do that, that might feel like a waste of time. So ideally, what you would like is something that you put in place once and for all, and then that thing does that for you. So you might have already looked online, but you haven't found any serious tutorial. Everything you find is clickbait article with zero real information in them, which makes you feel like you can't find anything anymore on the internet. So now that we're done with the intro, let's start with the first question. Can Excel export to Word? So let me explain what I mean by that. I'm talking about a drop-down menu within Excel where you can just click on an option and then it's going to take the content from that Excel file and then export it into a Word document. So that's a good question to ask because you can actually do that with a PDF. You can export an Excel file into a PDF. And here is the video that explains how to do that. So the problem is you can't do that for a Word document. You don't have the option to export an Excel file into a Word document. That leads to the question, how do you go from Excel to Word then? And so in my opinion, the easiest way to do that is to extract the data from the Excel file using an API and then write it down into a Word document using another API. So if you're a beginner, now you're probably wondering, what is an API? So a lot of people like to make things complicated. It's not. Here's what it is. It's what enables you to use an external software with a programming language, and that's it. So let me apply that definition to what we're doing here. We want to use an external software like Excel and Word with Python. For Excel, we want to read, and for Word, we want to write, because we want to read the content from Excel and write that content into a Word document. So that's why we need those two APIs, because we need one to read the Excel file and the other one to write in the Word document. So let's start with the Excel file. How to get what's in the Excel file. In Python, one of the easiest way to do that is to use the API called OpenPixel. So there are a lot of ways to do that, but I recommend this one because this is a very unsophisticated API, and it's especially important when you're a beginner because you should be able to find tutorials about it very easily on the internet. In fact, if you want to know more about that API, you can watch that video where I talk about it. So again, you don't have to use this one in particular, but the point is to have one that is well documented. What does that mean? That means if you have questions about it, you'll have answers with a quick online research. Now let's move on to the Microsoft Word API. You have two easy options to do that. The first one is using an existing API. For example, docx works really well. Now again, it works well because it's a simple API and it works well when you need to be fast and you don't need to be very sophisticated. So that's why I recommend it unless it doesn't work. So again, as a general rule for beginners, be as unsophisticated as possible and don't learn to use things you don't need. So let me expand a little bit on that. The reason is there are infinite levels of sophistication to everything. If as a beginner you start to go deep on one topic, it'll be overwhelming and counterproductive. The truth is you don't need a lot to get started and finish a project. The reason why people think that is because they go deep on a topic as a way of procrastinating moving forward. In my experience, most of the time you have a choice. You can either learn something that makes you sound smart or actually do something useful, but you rarely get to do both. So now let me give you an actual example of how to use that API in Python. So here it is, you only have 4 lines of code here. So this video is not a tutorial about how to get started with Python, so I'm not going to get too much into details here, but the point here is to show you what using an API would look like in Python. In a nutshell, what this piece of code is going to do is the following. 1. Open a Word document. 2. Write something in it. And 3. Save the Word document. If you're very unfamiliar with Python, the first line is what you have in every single script. The second line is what you have to write when you're going to use an API. And the fourth line is a comment. So that was the first option for writing something in a Word document. The second one is creating your own API. And for that, you'll need to use win32com.client. So this one's going to use a component object model. That is what COM stands for. That's basically what is usually used to create APIs. So if this one feels a little bit complicated, that's because it is. Basically, it is as sophisticated as it gets. You can pretty much do everything you do in Word using this. So that is very advanced, but you can use that option if you can't use the previous one. With this, you know that you'll be able to use all the features that Microsoft Word has. Now, another big advantage to that option is that it works pretty much the same way as in other programming languages. That was basically the idea behind creating component object models. So what does that mean in practice? It means that if you're familiar with using VBA, you might be familiar with using component object models. And so it might be very easy to use in Python. So that might be important to consider if you're going to make a decision on what option you're going to use. So that's pretty much all you need to know. If you want to know more, you can click on the link in the description. You'll get a free online course. Have a great day and see you in the next video.